Hi, I'm Jim. At ReleaseTEAM, we get inquiries about how GitLab meets Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC, requirements for working with the federal government. GitLab meets many of these requirements, but many of them are your responsibility and aren't as simple as just purchasing a product. In this presentation, I'll be going over what GitLab covers and what you need to do for CMMC compliance. GitLab offers a hosted solution that meets FedRAMP moderate requirements, hosted in AWS GovCloud. Like any software as a service product, if this solution meets your organizational needs, it greatly reduces the management overhead of monitoring and maintaining the platform. If the hosted version does not meet your needs, you can host your own GitLab instance. In either case, you're still required to fulfill certain responsibilities. This talk is going to dig into what you need to do for CMMC compliance. The first thing an assessor is going to ask for is your system security plan. This plan describes how your GitLab instance meets CMMC requirements. If your company does not yet meet all of the requirements, you need to have a documented plan to implement the areas where you have identified gaps. Personnel security screening activities involve the assessment of an individual's conduct, integrity, judgment, loyalty, reliability, and trustworthiness before authorizing access to organizational systems containing CUI. Screening standards are mostly up to you. They typically include criminal background checks, interviews, and drug tests. Security awareness training often covers counter-espionage, general cybersecurity, and email security topics. We recommend hiring a third-party provider of security training materials. A system security plan is a mandatory, living document detailing how defense contractors implement NIST SP 800 to 171 security controls to protect controlled unclassified information, CUI. It serves as a blueprint for CMMC Level 2 audits, mapping security requirements to technical practices, and must be updated to reflect current, accurate operational security postures. GitLab Dedicated for Government isolates your GitLab environment in a dedicated AWS GovCloud account. If you choose to manage your own installation, we suggest hosting in either an AWS GovCloud or Azure Government environment. Both of these environments will provide you with a formal document describing how they meet the security control requirements, which you should incorporate into your system security plan. In either case, GitLab needs to be hosted in an isolated account, network, or subnet. We'll talk about that more in a moment. As you can see here, choosing a cloud service provider to host GitLab addresses several controls, which takes that responsibility off of you. Take a moment to consider how your users will be connecting to the system. Cloud service providers offer dedicated private network links and virtual private networks, where you can use other zero-trust solutions like Tailscale or Zscaler. Start the secure, remote access conversation with your stakeholders early in the design process. Remember that your users will want to access GitLab via HTTPS and SSH protocols as transparently as possible. Avoid strictly HTTP-based remote access solutions. Git acts as an HTTP client in sometimes unexpected ways, such as when uploading LFS files, even though the repository is configured for SSH. If, for whatever reason, you choose to host your own GitLab environment with a cloud service provider, there's additional work required to meet CMMC requirements. In this section, I'll go over some of the requirements. For the sake of time, I'll be focusing on solutions in the AWS GovCloud environment. First of all, I'd like to point out the controls that your CSP will cover in a hosted environment. Components related to the underlying infrastructure, such as the host firmware and virtualization, are managed by the CSP. We recommend managing updates and patches to the virtualized operating system through a baked AMI, where the machine image is built and tested through a CI/CD process using tools like EC2 Image Builder or Packer. In our practice, the build environment is a temporary VPC, and the build process loads assets from a dedicated S3 bucket containing approved packages. The process is implemented with AWS CloudFormation templates and Packer, managed in a code repository. Start the conversation about monitoring and incident response with your security team early. They may have system requirements that will influence your design process. Your network environment is used to isolate CUI from non-restricted data and from other systems. This reduces the scope of the CMMC environment. Within the environment, follow a tiered architecture pattern to further protect individual components. Assessors will require proof of effective isolation, such as the network or firewall configuration. Secure access to the GitLab systems must not allow for unauthorized interactions. This can be accomplished through zero-trust solutions, traditional VPN connections, or direct connections to the VPC. Design your remote access solution carefully, as not all products are FIPS compliant. The more you can define your infrastructure through code or configuration, the better. Building through code provides a consistent result that can be tuned and updated in a disciplined way. Plan for a senior engineer to spend at least 2 to 3 months iterating on the infrastructure build process for your specific environment before it is complete. The result is worth the time. In our practice, patching means building a new baked AMI with updated packages and replacing the running instance with an updated image. Plan your upgrades considering that nearly every minor monthly GitLab release requires a database migration, and many patch releases may include them as well. Annual major releases always require database migration. Database migrations may not require downtime. They are performed on the GitLab server with the GitLab command. In the CMMC v2 Level 2 framework, vulnerability tracking and management are primarily governed by the risk assessment and security assessment control families. These requirements ensure that an organization not only identifies technical flaws, but also systematically remediates them based on risk. GitLab employs a mature and transparent vulnerability management process for reporting and resolving security issues. Keeping up with hotfixes and a monthly patch cadence will help keep your deployment secure. We've gone over the things that your cloud service provider will cover, but what about our responsibilities? GitLab features cover 7 of the requirement families that, when properly implemented, are compliant with CMMC. This table shows the control families and related GitLab features that could satisfy those controls. Notice these are technical controls. Many compliance frameworks, in general, not just CMMC, have significant process and procedural requirements that also need to be met. Some examples of non-technical controls are the requirements to create a system security plan, personnel screening, and security awareness training. Role-based access control is a method of describing access based on the roles of individual users within an enterprise. Instead of assigning permissions to every single person, you assign them to roles like reporter, developer, and maintainer, and then assign people to those roles. Role-based access control is the modern approach to granting access. By carefully designing role permissions, user access is precisely controlled with less operational overhead than permissions-based provisioning. Branch rules help secure development pipelines by limiting who can apply changes to production code. Your IDP must be explicitly documented in your system security plan under the Identification and Authentication (IA) and Access Control (AC) domains. Because it is in scope, an assessor will verify that the IDP itself meets all relevant requirements, such as password complexity, multi-factor authentication, and audit logging. Modern authentication is essential for meeting high-level CMMC practices, particularly replay-resistant authentication and MFA. Many people assume that using a FedRAMP IDP automatically makes them compliant with the IA domain. While the provider manages the software infrastructure, you are still responsible for the configuration. You must prove that you have configured the IDP according to the CMMC guidelines. GitLab normally stores audit events locally. You may wish to stream the audit events to an external system like a webhook, S3 bucket, or Google Cloud Logging. Vulnerability scanning applies to both the infrastructure, GitLab servers, and the applications, code managed by GitLab, if they are within your security boundary. GitLab is responsible for scanning and fixing the GitLab software itself. If you're hosting GitLab, you need to keep the GitLab software up to date. You're responsible for scanning source code, third-party libraries, and containers. Although GitLab provides compliance as code features, you are required to configure the compliance frameworks, pipelines, and rules in order for them to be meaningful. Users are responsible for setting repository restrictions, such as prohibiting the upload of secrets or unauthorized file types. If GitLab is hosting your service, data encryption at rest and in transit is already implemented. If you're hosting GitLab yourself, your infrastructure must implement encryption using FIPS-approved cryptographic modules. These requirements apply to all storage and communications within the GitLab infrastructure, as well as between modules. Be cautious when selecting remote access products, as some may use cryptographic modules that are not FIPS-approved. Note that just running the scans is only half of the RA L2-3.11.3 requirement. You must be able to show a risk assessment for the findings, meaning you use the GitLab vulnerability report to prioritize which flaws to fix based on severity, rather than just fixing them at random.
Thank you for watching. If you found this overview of GitLab and CMMC helpful, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more insights on DevSecOps, compliance, and secure software delivery. If you have questions about implementing GitLab in a CMMC-aligned environment or need help navigating compliance requirements, reach out to us at ReleaseTEAM. We're here to help you build secure, compliant, and efficient pipelines.
See you in the next video.